Maestro is Bradley Cooper's magnum opus. And I'll be honest with you, I see glimpses of it. There are moments in this film that felt transcending, that felt like, wow, if only the entire film had this much adrenaline and love in it.
Maestro is beautiful, is sonically extremely impressive, and it just looks great. And that's kind of all that I got about it. I feel like there were a lot of missing elements and scenes from this movie that probably would have told a much deeper and richer story. But because the beats never really hit, and I think the thing this movie is missing is heart at the end of the day, it kind of gets lost on you.
Man, he is playing this guy too hard, too much. But there's also this feeling that they're trying to win you over when you're just trying to understand who this man is, who Leonard Bernstein is. And I really wish I got that story rather than a performance-driven movie where the story was second to that.
Hello and welcome to the movie podcast review of Maestro. My name is Daniel. I am your Maestro today. And joining me in this lovely, lovely orchestra that we call the movie podcast crew, it is Shahbaz. Hello, Shahbaz.
Hello.
And Anthony.
Hello.
Oh, okay, we're singing. We're not an orchestra anymore.
I didn't know what instrument to do. That's why I was like,
Anthony on multiple shows has done like I play trumpet, but like no trumpet today from Anthony.
Terrible trumpet.
Yeah, I didn't think of a trumpet.
Imitating his imitation
because I'm gonna do the wand, but then I don't want to be like condescending to the maestros out there and the conductors.
And also Daniel's a maestro right now too, so you can't.
But yeah, and I feel like
counting
of all of
in
us,
4/4 time,
Daniel's the only one who can do it. Right? Me doing it is just waving a pen in the air.
I have the conducting card, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I'm allowed to do it.
Yeah.
So I learned I had an exam in high school for conducting, and I had to do it, conduct our school orchestra in different time signatures and songs. It's not an easy job. It really isn't. I know when I was younger watching like orchestras or conductors, I would see like, yeah, it just looks like they're just like up there dancing with like with a stick, but there's such an art to it that you really don't know unless you know. And I think we'll talk more about that in Maestro today. We are heading into, or we're full steam into the award movie season, and Maestro has been a film that we've been hearing a lot about. We've been hearing about Bradley Cooper's transformation. He's spent so many, years of his life working on the story and practicing and getting so immersed in the role. I'm curious for both of you. Maestro, we know, is going to be in a big Oscar contender. Do you think, and I don't want you to answer it right now. We'll answer it at the end of the show because we want people to stick around to the end, of course. But keep this in mind when we're reviewing this. And I know we don't typically talk about awards here as much, but I'm curious, what big categories do you think Maestro will be contenders in? I want you to kind of keep that in the back of your mind, and we'll circle back to it at the end of this episode, because this is the movie podcast. You could catch brand new episodes all throughout the week with new interviews, reviews, and episodes and all the latest movies, news, and series. We have an incredible main episode out right now that you can go check out. We talk about everything that happened in the world of the news, of movie and entertainment, so go check that out. We also have an interview out right now with the one and only Bella Ramsey, who was so gracious to join us on the movie podcast to talk about Chicken Run and The Last of Us. So make sure you go check out that interview. Give it lots of love, because we love doing these interviews and we want to keep doing more of them for you. And of course, we're not done yet. We have lots of reviews and interviews coming right up to the end of the year. So we're going to be keeping your ears busy today and throughout the next couple weeks. But let's get right into it. We're talking about Maestro. Like I said, this is written and directed by Bradley Cooper. It's also produced by Martin Scorsese and Steven Spielberg. So you have some really big heavy hitters coming into play today. So it's really exciting when we get a movie of this caliber coming onto the world. And of course, it's going to be releasing in limited theaters in November, and it will stream on Netflix on December 20th. So make sure you check it out then if you're looking for it on Netflix. And I want to say thank you to them for inviting us to watch the film today. Let's get right into it, because I know we have a lot to say. Shahbaz, start us off with your first reactions to Maestro.
Maestro is beautiful. It is sonically extremely impressive, and it just looks great. The visual storytelling that Bradley Cooper has been able to do here is stunning. I think the way he transitions from vignette to vignette is so classic Hollywood. And Bradley Cooper continues to prove he is more than capable behind the camera as he is in front of the camera. While all those things are definitely positives and great about the film, I think what the movie really suffers is in trying to tell a story that's engaging and a story that kind of really lets you know more about this character of Leonard Bernstein, who is someone from real life. But after watching this 2 hour film, I didn't learn too much about this character. I feel like I knew already what I had going in when I left the movie. I was like, okay, he's a famous composer. His personal life has been very complicated, and that's kind of all that I got about it. I feel like there were a lot of missing elements and scenes from this movie that probably would have told a much deeper and richer story. But when the movie kind of starts, it really shows his success comes kind of easily in a way, and you never feel that struggle, and you start to wonder, is this movie more about his relationship with Carey Mulligan and the things that occurred during their marriage? Is this about him and his family? And even then, when it starts to touch upon those threads of the story, it never fully commits to it. The other thing that I will say is, while the performances are really excellent, I mean, Bradley Cooper, he's really built himself into this role. Carey Mulligan as well. I still couldn't help but see them in the role. I knew that that was Bradley Cooper playing a character. And I think a lot of the times people were like, well, duh, that's the point. I think the point really is to get lost in that character and for us to just see the character and no longer the actor. But I kept still seeing Bradley Cooper. To compare, if you look at something like Oppenheimer, I didn't see Cillian Murphy anymore. I didn't see Robert Downey Jr. or the whole cast of actors in that movie. I didn't see them at all. I saw the character that they were playing, and I felt like I was witnessing history at that moment. With Maestro, I still kept seeing, okay, Bradley Cooper, he's got a prosthetic nose on. He's really giving it that Oscar worthy performance. And, you know, 20 years ago, I think this is the kind of film that, or even like much sooner than that, like maybe even 5 years
Yeah,
ago or less,
let's look at 5 years ago,
5 years
6 years
ago,
ago,
really.
for sure.
Yeah, those are the kind of movies that, the Oscars, they just love. And I think that this movie fits all those bills, but then it just starts to kind of feel like it's no longer an original film. It is no longer a movie that's about this character. It's just an Oscar bait film. And that's kind of where I'm left with this movie. Had a good time with it, but it never punches you in the gut that you want a movie to, and kind of keeps you hooked into it.
Shahbaz, I completely agree with you. I think when I was going to this film, I kept hearing nonstop on multiple podcasts that I was listening to, multiple like celebrities that saying, Maestro is, Bradley Cooper's magnum opus. And I'll be honest with you, I see glimpses of it. There are moments in this film that felt transcending, that felt like, wow, if only the entire film had this much adrenaline and love in it and soul. And I totally agree with you that you could see the performances. I think you want to see great performances. And again, on paper, they are great performances. And people may be like, well, what do you guys mean? Well, in the lowest terms I could say, like, it feels very like they're trying really hard to give an Oscar quality film, right? It feels a little try hard. And again, that's fine, but it's like, if you're going to do that, you need to deliver on all aspects of it. And I think with Maestro, for me, which we'll talk about in a little bit, it felt like it was just missing. There was a secret ingredient missing. But Anthony, please jump in. Give us your first reaction to Maestro.
Just like you, Daniel, there was a lot of, you know, information going into this movie about how well this movie was going to be and how well it was received at the Venice Film Festival and everything leading up to it, because this was, Bradley Cooper's moment. This was the movie that was going to be his shining light. It was going to be his best picture, his best director, best actor. And I feel like when you have a lot of that on, there's this huge expectation, right? Like, you're just going into it thinking, my God, this is going to be like one of the best films I've ever seen, and especially about someone you don't know. And I really didn't know anything about Leonard, and I knew, again, I did my research, I dived into his past and understand where he came from. So I'm like, okay, this is going to be an interesting story. Here's a composer, conductor who is struggling with his identity. He's not sure if he's gay, if he's bisexual, if he loves his wife, or is she just an idea of what he wants love to be. He's kind of stuck in this. And the way Bradley told the story, it was almost as if the performances were the main part of it and the story came later rather than the story and then the performance that gradually would come with that story. And that's what I felt. I
Definitely see
felt
that.
like, man, this guy is doing everything in his power to win this award. And I wish I didn't feel like that. I just felt like, man, he is playing this guy too hard, too much, down to the,
Yeah.
the
Nailed it. You nailed it, Anthony.
he became a caricature of Leonard. And there's a really beautiful scene in the cathedral where he just fucking snaps. He is like, I don't know if there were cameras back then to record it, but I just envision that this is what it must have been like for him
in the 60s,
in the 60s.
or
Well,
the 70s,
because he shoots the scene in the cathedral where he's conducting,
right?
and he just goes all out. It feels like this one shot. He's sweating. It's a lot of hair. So I don't know if that was the exact
If that was
look,
documented,
but it just felt
Gotcha.
like that was captured in time. And that was a moment from that point in the movie where I started to care a lot about this film. But that was like an hour and 50 minutes, maybe an hour and 45
It
minutes.
was very late in the movie.
It was very late. And I actually started to care more about this movie at the end of this movie. Shay, you're right that there isn't a struggle there. You don't understand. You see that he has issues of the life paths he chose, but they're very glossed over. They're
like bullet points.
Yes, they're very much bullet points. You never feel that there's these moments in his life that really affect him as a character. And I also, this movie really focuses on the love story. Doesn't show him actually being a maestro as much as him being everything
In a
else
relationship.
in a relationship. And
Yeah.
I don't even want to say it's yes, it is the story of their relationship for sure. But there's so many other things that are happening that I feel like even that part is taken away from watching this movie. But, I think performance-wise, probably Bradley Cooper's best performance, Carey Mulligan's best performance. But there's also this feeling that they're trying to win you over when you're just trying to understand who this man is, who Leonard Bernstein is. And I really wish I got that story rather than a performance-driven movie where the story was second to that.
We've all spoken about the performance first, and it very much is the performance first. So I do want to we kind of said it more in a critical light, but let's talk to the positive of the performances, because they are great performances still. And I think Bradley Cooper, you said it, Anthony, like Bradley Cooper is probably giving his finest performance of his career at this point. He's been nominated like 9 times for for an Oscar, and 1, 2, 3, 4 times for his acting, other times for directing and things like that. But like it's incredible to see his career trajectory, and to see like, wow, like this guy is going to be, he became Leonard Bernstein. He definitely did. And Leonard Bernstein, you'll know, like, whether you know him by name or not, like you'll know what West Side Story is, what on the waterfront is, like he things that he has been part of have lived on for so long. And that's just like on the film side, like not including his stage work, his ballets, his operas, and all of that he's done. And I really loved every single moment of this film that really focused on, him being a maestro, him being a master of of his craft. And I think Bradley directed and performed the hell out of those scenes. There's a scene in the beginning of the film where he gets a phone call saying, you know what, you're going to be playing, was it Carnegie Hall? And he knows, the main conductor is sick, you're going to be stepping in. And there is this sweeping shot throughout the entire, basically concert hall, that's going to be up there for one of the best shots of the year. It is incredible the way it moves. I want to shout out Maddie Lebatique, who is a cinematographer of this film. Absolutely just incredible camera work. You are following him. It almost looks like he's like in a diorama, running through it, going to the stage, coming back. I'm like, oh my God, this movie is about to take us on a trip. And I only wish that level of energy was maintained throughout the rest of it, because it felt like that energy of him being in love with music almost got lost in the grander message of this film. And yes, it does focus on him and Carey Mulligan, and his struggle a little bit for, I love this woman, but I'm also going to be pursuing these other relationships as well too. But I felt like it felt like Maestro had its hands in a lot of different things instead of firmly planting itself in, this is a film about my relationship, or this is a film about how this guy became the greatest maestro of all time.
This movie, when you look at it and you look at Bradley Cooper's career, that guy who really is passionate about making movies and being invested in the characters, and now it's gone to directing and writing. And that's what this movie really shows Bradley do. Like everything that you love as someone who watches film, but movies shot on film, it's 1:3:1. So it has this really, old aspect ratio where it's square based and it's very large and the characters look large and everything has that old timey feel that I feel like that's what he remembers or what he wants to see in a movie. But it, like I said, it just comes off not genuine. It almost comes off like it's very manufactured to the point where I I see what you're trying to do, Bradley, but I think you went too hard on it and too
You see
too
through the lens.
too much on
You almost
that
see him.
passion that you've lost
Yeah.
what it really was to just make the movie.
Yeah, you see him trying to emulate like Scorsese, who's a producer on it, Spielberg, who's a producer on it, where it's like, where's his voice in this? And I think that's where we were talking about, what is Bradley Cooper's directing style, his writing style, his acting style. He's a brilliant actor. He's shown that time and time again. But this one, you're almost starting to see behind the camera. You're seeing the thought process in the work rather than really paying attention to the work. Shay.
I think the thing for me is when we watched this movie and we kind of came out of it, I was like, a lot of it felt like, it was something that Spielberg would have worked on. There's a lot of moments in this movie where it reminded me of Schindler's List with the way that the camera's moving, the way you're using the color grading of black and white. And I really enjoyed that. And like you said, Daniel, that opening sequence of going through this different stage and moving out and pulling in, I'm like, wow, this is so beautiful. This movie is gonna really blow our minds. And it's not that it ever takes a pause, because the runtime and the pacing of this movie is really good. I think like it just kind of keeps moving, but because the beats never really hit, and I think the thing this movie is missing is heart at the end of the day, it kind of gets lost on you. You just kind of keep seeing a movie, and I hate to use this as an example, but it almost feels a little bit AI sometimes, where it's like, if I went into Chat GPT and was like, write and create a movie for me that is reminiscent of Spielberg and is gonna win a bunch of Oscars and give people the feels this way, this is kind of what I would get. And it bums me out because it never felt original, never felt like this is the movie Bradley Cooper wanted to make. This is just the movie that he did make because he was inspired by so many people. And he was like, listen, these are the Oscar winning films that I love. And these are the Oscar winning movies that I wanted to show. And he gave us that, which is so cool. And I think it's an excellent thing to do. But I never still got an idea of, okay, what is Bradley Cooper's signature style and what does he bring? Because again, his performance is great and it'll probably be remembered for a very long time, but I don't think it'll be one that I remember for a very long time.
It's interesting you mentioned like the AI piece, because I get what you're saying, and again, that's not to, and we're saying that not to take away from the artistic
No, not at all.
integrity of the film, not at all, because it is a beautifully shot film, it's a beautiful looking film, but I see it in the sense where it's like, if you're looking at a checklist of everything you want from a movie that will be nominated for 6+ Oscars, it's like, okay, have a producing team that is Scorsese and Spielberg, check.
That
Have
alone.
have a performances, Carey Mulligan, Bradley Cooper, check. Shoot it on film, make it about Hollywood old. It's like you're going through a list of like,
Old
is it the film
Hollywood
that he
classic,
wanted to
all
make,
of it.
or is it a film that Bradley Cooper felt like he had to make to finally get that recognition? And
Right.
you totally see him putting everything into it. You see it. You
Yeah.
see him giving everything because he wants. And again, I don't know if I'm not saying that he's doing it just to win an award, but he's obviously doing it because he's passionate about this story and he wants to tell it, but also there's going to be a lot of acclaim that comes with that. And I think he's deserving for a lot of it. I just really wish that there was something to this film that made me go, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And again, I correct me if I'm wrong. Like, I feel like I had the most knowledge of who Leonard Bernstein was going into this. But even then I'm leaving, I'm like, okay, yeah, I got more about a little bit of his personal life. I think the scenes that Bradley Cooper is conducting the orchestra are some of the most incredible moments of this film. Some of my favorite scenes of the year that I will most likely, when I rewatch this film or go to this film or think of this film down the road, I'll be like, oh, let me put on the cathedral scene, or let me put on that opening scene again, or let me see like the opera practicing, because those are where this movie is shining. It literally sing to the heavens. You're just like, this is what Maestro is. You
Yeah.
see that, you see the blood, sweat, and tears that go into putting in a performance. And I watched Tar last year, and it was very reminiscent of Tar, this film, in the sense of you have this conductor who, could be a little promiscuous as well too. And there's other stuff that comes with that, with very different messages of the films. But it's funny that, we're getting Maestro the year after Tar, where it feels like all that love and that idea of like, oh, what a conductor is, people almost got from Tar, and now Maestro's coming out. So I'm curious to see, will the Academy or will audiences be like, oh yeah, let me get another conductor film, right? Or
Right.
people wouldn't care enough about it.
It's just
And I think
'cause-
that's something we spoke about, right? Like who's the film for?
Yeah,
Right. And
this
it's definitely
is
going to
such a
skew
classic
an older
movie.
crowd.
This has
Yeah, it
that
is a classic
classic movie feel, which is great. But because you've seen it 100 times before, it never feels fresh. It never feels new. So walking out of this movie, I was like, "Oh, that was good. I had a good time with that." But it's also because I've seen it that I know that it's a good time. But it never showed me anything new, and I think that's what bummed me out the most. Is I never left this movie learning more about this character. I'm like, yeah, I had known about Leonard Bernstein's sexuality always being this thing that was kind of brought up. It was like, he's with men, and also he has a wife, and there's the taboo around it. But that's kind of it. It's luckily not as bad as something that you got in Bohemian Rhapsody, where that movie was
No.
trying to avoid it in a way. Whereas this one, they are admitting to everything that's happening.
They embrace it, right?
They
It feels
embrace
like,
it, yes.
they're telling the story. They're making a little bit. I feel like, again, I don't know the full extent to his his relationship history, but it definitely feels a little bit more easy.
Yeah.
Where it's like easy in the sense where it's like, yeah, there's struggles in life, but
It never felt
You
hard.
don't really see him struggle as much. And I
No.
almost wanted to see him struggle more, or him be up for something to conduct something and not get it. You don't get that. You literally just get the success story, and then you get the little pieces outside of that. It's like the camera's pointed this way, but I'm like, but what's going on over there? What's going on that side?
We saw Carey Mulligan struggle more, I think.
Yeah, it was 100%. She carried a lot of this film, right?
My biggest thing is, you're going to tell a story about Leonard Bernstein, and you want to tell a story about the love story between these two, but it's so basic that I was struggling to understand why this was the main focus of the story.
Yeah. Like, why did they fall in love?
Because at the end of it, if she knew who he was, and he was going to be promiscuous throughout his life, and she was okay with it, and maybe there are struggles within that because she gets jealous, and he's just trying to be who he is, there needed to be more than what we got in that film, because
Definitely.
we're overshadowing that this man was the first real music orchestra conductor that was American based, because the majority of them were all from Europe, right? So here's the first American music orchestra. I don't even know what conductor
And
of
composer,
orchestras and composers.
Yeah.
This guy's writing music. This, like, he's one of those people that, and he's American. That's a big thing too, but that's so overlooked because you have this love story that they really want to focus on. And I just found that the love story wasn't big enough for that to overshadow his actual career. And it almost felt like this movie was appeasing the family. Like, I remember watching at the Venice Film Festival, they had the kids and they were there. Now they're in their adult years and their older adult years. And they were really happy with what they got. And it almost felt like this was like a home movie made for them, in a sense that this was just, a memory of who their father and mother was. But for them, not for the grand audience, not for the people who are going to go and actually watch this film. There needed to be something more. Because again, we never lived with these people, so we don't know what really happened. And I think that's where the gray area of, we should have seen a little bit more heartache, a little bit more struggle, like we've been saying, getting to the top, being who he was, struggling with his identity, struggling with who he was, with loving his wife, as well as being stuck in a room, in a sense. So there's a lot of things that is missing from this movie that could have made this so much better.
I like that a lot, Anthony. Again, I think this is something that we've kind of echoed throughout, where there are such moments of brilliance in this film for me, where I was just like, wow, like there's so much of this that I'm loving. And again, on paper, it's like this checks all the boxes for what you would want from a film. But I really do think it was missing that special ingredient. And it was missing, like Shay said, some of that heart, like Anthony was saying, that struggle. And for me, and for I know for all of us, we wanted a lot more music. We wanted a lot more of those scenes because Bradley Cooper is amazing conducting those scenes. Like those are, like I was saying, some of my favorite scenes of the year from of any movie. Like those are some incredible sequences. And if only we got more of that, more of his rise or fall or whatever in the world of music, I think that would have been really, really incredible to see. Earlier in this episode, I asked you guys, where do you see Maestro falling when it comes to awards down the road? Because we are in the award movie season. Are we seeing, almost like a clean sweep in terms of nominations, like Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Actress, adapted screenplay, everything like that? Or where are you seeing with that? And Anthony, we'll get you to start.
Definitely best actor, best director, best actress as well. Cinematography's beautiful. I think there was this one shot, and I was mentioning to you guys as we were leaving, of Leonard conducting. It's a shot of Carey Mulligan who's watching his hugeness in this world, and she's living in the shadow. And that's another part that I wish they really focus on. But she's living in the shadow, and the way he's doing it, and the bigness and the grandness of it, it was so well shot. And again, I don't know how much CG was it in it, but I felt like that was one of those shots that I just stood out for me in this movie.
Yeah.
Music, like in terms of audio, I think it has a really good audio design. Score, everything is his music.
I mean, it's all his music
It's
from
all his
all of his
music,
films,
yeah.
all his works
Right?
he's gone on. So I don't think it would technically be. I don't think it would be eligible for best original score because there is no original score for this film.
Screenplay, not so much. Prosthetics, maybe like costume design, like the hair, the
Yeah,
face. Like
it's possible,
Bradley
yeah.
Cooper reminded
Yeah.
me so much of a Pixar character, just because he has these blue eyes, but he also has this
Piercing
he has a
blue
big
eyes,
nose
yeah.
because Leonard had a bigger nose, but he just felt like
Yeah.
a cartoonish character because he didn't the blue eyes really stand out. So you remind me of Pixar. I'm like, man, this is what like an AI Pixar version of a person's face might look like.
I
And
see
it's
that
it
100%.
also has like, because it's shot in black and white, it has like this
Yeah.
smoothness that goes over, so it looks
Right.
very Pixar-ish. But yeah, I think it's gonna get a lot of nominations, but I think those are the ones that will stand out from the list of others.
It's funny you mentioned like Shay earlier mentioned Schindler's List, and I was like, yeah, like Bradley Cooper and almost has like a Ray Fiennes look to him as well too. So I'm like, yeah, he definitely was getting those parallels, and then obviously, parts of this film took place in the 40s as well too. So you're really getting, the span of like 30 years over this film. Shay, how about you? How are you seeing Maestro faring at the Oscars this year? And the bigger question is Cillian Murphy safe as Best Actor?
I want to say, yeah. I think, hey man, oh my god, I'm so flustered with what I want to say because I think this is Academy food. This is Academy dinner. This is something that the Academy is going to eat right up. Everything about it checks the boxes for them. They are fed with this movie. So for them, I think they're going to be like, yeah, best director, best, like give it everything they got. And it's fine. I think, it's great. This movie is not a bad movie, of course. We enjoyed this film, but it doesn't challenge the status quo. This movie doesn't push the boundaries of what you can make movies. And I want to toot the horn of Oppenheimer again. That movie is 3 hours long. It let us know that movies can be 3 hours long. They can be biopics and they can feel so entertaining that you don't feel 3 hours go by. And you look at a movie like this, which is fantastic, but it's just something you've seen 100 times over and over again. Fantastic movie, really well made. But when you've made the dish a bunch of times, to really mess it up would be kind of a surprise. So for a movie like this, it's safe. It does its thing. It's going to get the nominations that we all expected to get. Is it going to get the wins? and I mean this with all due respect, I hope it doesn't get the wins that I want Oppenheimer or another film to get. And that's kind of where I'm at with it. I want this movie to be loved. I want people to like this movie, but I think there are movies out there right now that deserve the awards more so than this film.
Let's get to our final recommendations. Anthony, I'm going to get you to start us off.
Add it to your queue. I believe that also it's not going to be a movie that's widely available anyway. So if you have access to one of the limited screenings that it will play in and you are a big Leonard Bernstein fan, then maybe go watch it. But I think waiting for it on Netflix and then watching it at home is probably your best option. But I think it's also a movie that you should watch at some time is in your life, because it's a really well made movie. And I think for the respect of Bradley Cooper, I think he put everything he could possibly put in this movie, his whole heart. But I feel like that story of the relationship, you're going to start to question, why was this so important to be the main part of the story?
I got you. I'm right there with you. I think for me, it's a watch it on Netflix. So once it releases on Netflix on December 20th, check it out there. If you are someone who it is playing around you and you are a fan of his or you're curious, I would say it's worth it to see, those master scenes of him actually conducting on screen. Those are really mesmerizing, and we got to listen to it and watch it in Dolby Atmos today, which sounded incredible. And it's like, wow, like the majority of people who watch this film will not watch it like this. And it's a shame because it surrounds you. It sounded incredible. And I think that's something that the sound design in this film is phenomenal. But I will say, yeah, Bradley Cooper, he gives it his all. You see it on screen, but I think because it feels like, the best picture winner of 2015 or 2016, like Shay said, it is something that we feel like we've gone before. Doesn't make it bad, but it just feels a little less original in that sense. But yeah, I would say definitely watch it once it hits Netflix. Shahbaz, take us home.
I'm right there with Anthony. I think add to your queue. There is some great stuff in this movie. There's some great visuals, some great music, but it doesn't leave a lasting impression, and it doesn't leave the impression that I think it wants to leave. So when you get a chance, when it's on Netflix, maybe around Christmas time, gather with the family, put it on, and just bask in it. I think. But yeah, add to your queue.
I love it. Thank you so much for listening to the movie podcast review of Maestro. Like we said, it is available on Netflix December 20th. So check it out or don't check it out. Maybe re-listen to our review. That also will help us out a lot too. If you like what we're doing here at the Movie Podcast, make sure you subscribe, leave us 5 stars wherever you're listening or watching. Make sure you engage with us because a like goes a long way. I want to say thank you again to our friends at Netflix for inviting us to watch this film. We have lots of reviews, lots of interviews, and episodes coming your way before the year is up. So make sure you tune into us on all social media feeds, on YouTube, wherever you follow us. Our show notes below have everything you need and more. That was This Time with the Movie Podcast, and we'll see you next.